Lewiston City Council will come to order for its regular meeting, March 9th, 2026, 6 p.m. Lewiston City Library here. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand and join us in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you, Council, and welcome. Members of the public and staff, thank you for sharing your evening with us. Our next item of business is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for individuals wishing to comment on agenda items or other matters they wish to bring to the Council's attention, excluding those scheduled for a public hearing. Yes, there may not be another opportunity to comment. Individuals are encouraged to speak at this time. Individuals are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor. In consideration of others wishing to speak, commentary is limited to 3 minutes. We have a new shot clock we're going to try out today. And behind the curtain back there, we have Jenny Barassa from our ISS department helping us out. So thank you, Jenny. I'm sure you can hear us. We have a microphone in the middle of the floor. We just need you to introduce yourself and your city of residence. We do not need a physical address. So with that, I would welcome any citizen comments tonight.
Hello, my name is Linnea Noreen. I am a resident of Lewiston, and I'm here actually not to make comments so much as to introduce myself to those of you who I might not know, as I'm up for appointment for the Urban Renewal Agency, and that is on the agenda for confirmation tonight. So thank you to Mayor Johnson for recommending me, and I just thought I would see if anybody had any questions or just to say hello, and thank you for hopefully confirming me.
Thank you, Linnea. Thank you for being here. The appointment soon, and I know you may have to leave early, but thank you for being here tonight. Are there further citizen comments? Welcome.
John Michael, Lewiston, Idaho. I'm a kinder person now, but I still have some concerns about this thing I read in the paper and various news organizations about the city's dealings with the Prophet family and the developers. I used to be a reporter. I ran the Daily Fly. I did some reporting in the Florida Keys. And, well, let me just start with this, okay? I've asked the council several times, past councils, to set up some meetings with local developers, especially the small guys, business people, so they can air out their grievances. There's been a long time of the city not seeing eye to eye and back and forth with that community, okay? The other thing is small towns tend to have a good old boy system, right? So we've got to, if we want to have light on the whole situation, we've got to ask ourselves. I mean, if you read the story, it doesn't really make sense how the city works. So a couple of things in my mind make sense, that maybe somebody from the city had a vendetta against the prophets, and therefore we're not going to deal with them. The other thing is, in Lewiston's small town, they have their good old boy network. So I'm going to ask you guys straight up, did any other influential builders, developers, business people meet with you, the mayor, or the council, or the staff trying to influence the outcome of this profit thing? In other words, trying to get you not to work with them. And that's entirely possible. And you guys know the answers, but we need light on these situations, okay? So I'm asking, anybody want to volunteer? Nobody? Okay, I also know.
No.
I also know that you guys still have meeting logs, like you all have to write down everybody you met with and so forth, right? If they come into your office, there's a log that they came in your office and what you talked about. Is that not true?
Not true, no. I wouldn't have a record of that necessarily.
Okay. Also,
Not the discussions necessarily. I may have it on my calendar that somebody showed up, yeah.
okay. All right. Because I think that's part of maybe even something you have to do. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not against anybody. I've been around long enough. I'm nobody's judge, but I think these questions have to be asked, and we have to look at them seriously. Okay, and as a council, that's your job to keep an eye on the mayor, keep an eye on the staff for that kind of stuff.
Thank you, John Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there further citizen comments tonight? Anybody else like to comment? Okay, seeing none. We'll move to presentations, Roman numeral 4. Item A, Arbor Day proclamation proclaiming April 22nd, 2026 as Arbor Day in the city of Lewiston. Councilors, I'm just going to read the proclamation from here. I do have a signed proclamation that I will share with Director Glenn, Parks and Recs Department tomorrow. The proclamation reads, whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Dan Johnson, Mayor of the City of Lewiston, proclaim April 22nd, 2026 as Arbor Day in the City of Lewiston, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, I encourage all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and seal of the City of Lewiston, Idaho, to be affixed hereto this 9th day of March 2026. Daniel G. Johnson, Mayor of Lewiston of Idaho. So thank you, Director Glenn, and for your work and maintaining. I think we're still a tree city, so thank you for your efforts in that. So I will get that proclamation to you tomorrow. Council, next up, we have item B, Homeless Stats 2025, presentation by Michelle King, President of the LC Valley Youth Resource Center regarding U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2025 homeless statistics as requested by Councilor Forsman at the February 9th, 2026 City Council meeting. So I will turn it over to Councilor Forsman.
Thanks for coming, Michelle, and presenting. I just wanted the public to be able to hear what's going on in their valley and how if it's affecting them, and so they can see those numbers and stats, and also the council to be aware, and if decisions come our way, then we are informed and aware of what's going on in our city. So I think these numbers are important for us to keep an eye on. And so I just wanted, this is just for informational purposes for the council, so they can add it into their toolbox if in future situations come about, then we are hopefully as prepared as we can be.
Council, thank you for welcoming me here. My name is Michelle King. I am the co-founder and volunteer president of the LC Valley Youth Resource Center. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share this information. So as you can see on the slide, I wear many hats. I actually sell software full-time, 50 hours a week. I serve as the president and volunteer CEO of the Youth Center. I serve on the CHAZ board. Today, the hat I'm wearing is as our Idaho Region 2 liaison for the point in time count. So what is the point in time count? The quick version is, it is the most conservative number of homeless people we have in our community. There are many ways that you can measure displaced community members, but this is, you can only count them if you speak to them in person or on the telephone, and if they were sleeping in a place that was uninhabitable. That doesn't count motels or doubled up. This is not a true accurate measurement of how much housing we need to build. It is the cascade effect of not having enough housing. And so these are people who actually slept in a place that was not meant for human habitation. Before I go any further, I want to thank the city of Lewiston for your approach to displaced community members. Lewiston does an amazing job of understanding you can arrest your way out of a housing crisis. And so these community members are respected in Lewiston, and I think that's a very big deal, especially when you see a little bit more data breakdown of how many there are and who they are. So in 2024, we went digital in Idaho for capturing this information. Clarkston across the street, for example, still uses paper forms. When it was paper, we could only have the data of all of Region 2. So when we would talk about homeless solutions, we would talk about, they would say, okay, well, Region 2 has this many, then we'll divide it by 5 for the 5 counties, and then we'll figure that half of those are in Lewiston. Like you get Nez Perce County, and then you get half as Lewiston. Now we have real numbers for the very first time of how many people we counted in Lewiston. And when I say we counted, it's my team and I and some volunteers from the community. So these are people who were here at the library, at the community center, the bus transit, community action. We went to the Salvation Army, we went to meal sites, and then through our partnership with the Lewiston Police Department, we knew where people were camping or staying, and we were able to go visit them. Again, people who are counted in this slept in cars, parks, abandoned buildings, around the airport, campgrounds, and other places not meant for human habitation. No electricity, no running water, no place to go potty. In Lewiston, on January 29th, 2025, it does take a bit to get this data through HUD, deduplicated, all of that. So this is a year ago's data. There were 101 that we counted in Lewiston. Now, why that number as a taxpayer needs to be very important, because research shows that for every unsheltered homeless person you have in your community, the investment from the taxpayers in whether it's law enforcement, unpaid emergency room visits, all of the things is at least $30,000 a year. So that number means we spent $3 million in 2025 on homeless people, and that's not providing solutions. That's not providing any change. That's just having 100 homeless people. So somebody check my math, please. Of that 100 people, 42 were in their vehicle, 33 were sleeping outside, and 8 were in a tent or farm building or somewhere else. 12 were under the age of 18. 6, again, I'm going down the Lewiston column. 6 were between 18 and 24, and we had 3 senior citizens sleeping in places unmeant for humans. 69 single adults, 5 parents with children, 2 unaccompanied youth. That means under the age of 18, but no parent with them, and 1 parenting youth. Again, these are unsheltered. This is not how many kids were at the youth center that night. These are kids that weren't. Mostly men. As we do the racial background, it does accurately reflect our census data, which I think is really important to measure. That, most of the folks were Caucasian. Folks, we had 17 veterans that night, sleeping in a place that's not meant for humans. 13 fleeing domestic violence. 61 identified that they had a disability. And then when we break down a little further into it, 40 of them, that disability was a serious mental illness, and 16 said substance abuse disorder. One of the important questions to ask is, where did they come from? Because I know there's a lot of superstition that our displaced community members come from somewhere else. I do this every single day. The displaced community members here, most of them are from the Valley. And so we ask, what's the last address? Now, if you total this up, it doesn't total to the 101. So let me explain. When we ask these surveys, we ask them, maybe we're at a meal site in the line, and when they get up to their turn to take the meal, the survey ends. or maybe they start to get uncomfortable with the questions. Of course, we respect them as individuals and we end the survey whenever they're ready. So we don't get all of these questions answered from everybody, but 46 of them said they were from Lewiston. 18 said Washington. That means Clarkston. 4 were from Minnesota. If you total the whole thing, there were 7 from other states besides Idaho and Washington. The rest of them were from around here. We asked what caused their situation. 73 of them said it was either their financial situation or unable to find affordable housing. When they were asked what message they wanted to surface back up to you, they said, "We need a shelter, it's cold." I'm excited to say that I text my friend Jeremy at UGM. He said, since February 9th and as of last week, they had served 51 individual youth, or individual adults. Sorry, I serve youth, he serves adults. 18 men, 21 women, 3 moms, and 9 kids. And again, back to the question, the next thing I asked him was, where did they come from? Friends, they're from here. In Lewiston School District, as of February 26th, there were 146 kids registered in the Lewiston School District as McKinney-Vento homeless. Now that's a little more graceful definition, whereas the first count I gave you was truly in a place that was uninhabitable. McKinney-Vento allows for doubled up or couch surfing. So that's why this number is higher. And on December 15th, the shortest day of the year, the Chaz holds a memorial in their parking lot for people in our valley who have died while being homeless. And we read more than 20 names. I've been doing that for 4 years now, and we've read more than 20 names every year. So thank you for all you're doing to address the housing crisis that we have. If you didn't know this or this is new information, I'd be happy to spend some time with you and kind of talk through it. But the real answer is not more homeless solutions. We're thankful for those. We do they absolutely need to shore us up. But the answer is more housing. We need more places for people to live. I did bring the data, so if you want me to crunch any more numbers or run any more pivot tables, I can to answer your questions on the fly.
Councilor Forsman has the floor.
I'll just ask one question and then I'll let Councilor Wright get in there. As far as housing, are we referring to a certain type of housing or just housing in general? Or, because obviously affordability, I would imagine comes into play with that, so.
Yes and no, because rising tides raise all ships, and that really does apply to housing. So for those who don't know, when the 2008 housing crisis hit, obviously construction came to a halt. In 2021, they did a study, CETA did a study, and determined that we needed 114 units built at least every year since 2021. So we have from 2028 to 2021 where we really don't know the numbers of what was needed, but we know we weren't building enough. And then you go to 2021 and they said 114 every year. And there were many years in there where we had 50 building permits, 60 building permits, not enough. We did last year have kind of a catch up, but we need thousands, that's plural, to catch up and get enough housing units. So what happens when you don't have enough in any category, then everything scales down. You can go to any of our motels in North Lewiston, people are paying thousands of dollars a month to live in a motel room. And then they don't have a kitchen, so they have to eat out for everything. It's like, it just kind of cascades. So the real answer is more housing of every category. Affordable housing is a big deal, but everything becomes more affordable if there's enough inventory.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Oh, thank you. I didn't realize. Right, go ahead and answer.
Thank you. How are we trending with the homeless population? Are you seeing increase over year by year, or decreases?
Yes, so the data does show that we have had an increase. I believe I emailed you all a graph that shows the year over year for all of Region 2. This is just the first time we have Lewiston only data. So we just did the count the end of January. And so we'll have the data again this fall for 2026, and we'll be able to really compare apples to apples on the Lewiston itself level.
Oh, I see. That's that 5-year trend?
Yes.
that I see there?
Yep.
Okay.
And so all of Region 2 worksheet was provided by Idaho Housing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What resources, well, I guess I know the resources, so I'm going to word that differently. How do those that are struggling or maybe domestic violence, or maybe they just lost their house, how do they find resources? Where do they go?
Great question. So in Idaho Region 2, the resource is Sojourners Alliance. You can call, and they are the access point for all of Region 2. And they keep track of all of the available inventory for those resources. So there's one phone number that you call, they ask you a few questions, and they point you to the right resource for your circumstance, whether it's fleeing domestic violence, or you have kids, or you're a single male, whatever. That way, as a person who's working through difficult circumstances, you don't have to call the 42 people to try to find out who's got what. The access point already knows that inventory and can direct you straight to it. And if you are a federal grant recipient, you have to keep your inventory current with those folks.
Where would they find that information? Like, how would they know who to, I know.
Yeah, so
they see?
you can look for Idaho Region, or Idaho's Access Point, or Idaho Homeless. We need a better resource to be able to say, this is the phone number you call, for
Yeah,
sure.
'cause I would say if I lost my house today, I would probably have no idea. who to call.
Absolutely,
So there-
yes.
It's not, blaringly obvious of the resources and where they're at, so.
Yeah, the good news is that all of the resources, like if you called any of them, they should point you back to the access point. That way you can go find the right solution for your circumstance.
I see. So you're on the internet trying to get assistance. It should all point to the same direction.
That is the goal. I don't know how well it's being achieved today, but I know that is something that we're all working towards.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
we
sense.
want to make it as easy for people as possible. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
maybe it's a resource that we can even add to the city's website to say, if you're experiencing homelessness, this is where you call to find who's got what.
Certainly ask that question.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a question?
Yeah.
Counselor, go ahead. Cleaver.
So I guess I just have a question. Somebody's got a bunch of money and they want to build a housing development, say 15-unit apartment. They're going to want to maximize their return on investment. So obviously the price, if you compare prices with the new development versus what the market's bearing right now, what's the incentive for them to offer what I would consider whoever, affordable housing, knock the price down, but deprive them of added profit?
Absolutely. So next week, Idaho Housing is hosting their Housing and Economic Development Summit in Boise, and I will be in attendance to go and learn some of the great answers to those questions. I do know that there are programs with favorable lending terms that help add balance to make it so that you can charge affordable rent, even with current construction prices. And then there are also tax credits available that would be state tax credits that are offset by some of these incentives that are available. But to learn like nuts and bolts of what can we do in this community, that's specifically why I'm going to Boise next week, is to find out. So more news soon, but yes, I look forward to coming back with some of that information.
Okay, thanks.
Because yes, we need more hammer swinging. That's the bottom line. But we got to make the math work for sure.
Counselor Wright.
Thank you. In your interactions, when you and your team were doing these surveys, if the question wasn't asked, I'm curious how often, well, I guess to an extent it did come up, but the financial situation and the unable to find affordable housing, did you find they were also unemployed, or the 25 unemployed was that's its own special?
I so appreciate that you're asking that question, because it is through a weird set of circumstances in the United States, it's basically illegal to hire a homeless person. You have to have an address. You have to be able to complete an I-9. If you don't have all of your social security card and state issued ID, you are unhireable, but you can't get those unless you have an address to have them mailed to. And so if you don't already have those documents, you cannot legally work in the United States. And so one of the things we do for the youth at the youth center is we say, okay, now you have an address, let's get your social security card, let's get, you know, their basic things that, so that when you turn 18, we can get your state issued ID so that you are employable. Yeah, it's a very weird thing. So, but with regard to, a lot of them actually are working. They're either working under the table or maybe they're working as a CNA. And you just can't make it on $7.87 is what CNAs make in Lewiston, Idaho. If you get health insurance from your employer, even though it's a high copay, you make $7.87 an hour. And you cannot afford a, you know, studio apartment on that. That's just math. So, yeah, we have lots of opportunity, I guess is what I would say.
What it sounds like. Thank you.
Not seeing any more questions, so I think we're good. Thank you so much for coming and presenting, and I'll be sure to reach out if I have any more questions.
Thank you all for welcoming me here. And for those who haven't come for a tour of the youth center, please come see it. And then please follow along with what we're doing to build the village, because we have exciting things happening.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Councilor Forsman. Thank you. Council, next up, we have item C under Roman numeral 4, financial report for the period ending January 31, 2026, in accordance with Idaho Code 50-208. There is no oral report. Councilors, unless you have any questions, we'll move on. Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda, Roman numeral 5. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these issues unless the council so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on the active agenda under items moved from the consent agenda. Councilor Spickmeyer?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Spickmeyer, second by Councilor Klein to approve the consent agenda. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Klein,
Aye.
Councilor Maury,
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Next, we move to Roman numeral 6, active agenda. Item A, advisory board and commission appointments. This is an action item. Number 1, Urban Renewal Agency, considering appointing Linnea Noreen to a 4-year term. Council, I have interviewed with Ms. Noreen, and she's very excited to serve on this committee, and I think her talents are going to serve that committee well. So with that, I would move to approve the appointment of Linnea Noreen to a 4-year term on the Urban Renewal Agency.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Johnson, second by Councilor Forsman to approve the appointment of Linnea Noreen to a 4-year term on the Urban Renewal Agency. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Linnea, for serving. Council, next up, we have item B, Resolution 2026-04, considering approving the service agreement for Trust Health Plan and Benefits Administration services provided by the City of Lewiston to the City of Lewiston Employee Benefit Trust. This is an action item, and we have our Human Resources Director, Nikki Providence, with us here tonight. Nikki, welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours.
Nikki Providence, HR Director for the city. In front of you is a resolution to approve the mayor signing a service agreement with the Health Trust, the City of Lewiston Employee Benefit Health Trust. After 5 years being under the Department of Insurance, the DOI did their 5-year audit, and they recommended that because city employees perform administrative work for the trust, that there be a service agreement. And so that's what kind of led us here before you to approve.
Director, councilors, questions? Councilors, do you have a motion? Councilor Spickmeyer down here.
Motion to approve resolution 2026-04?
Second.
It's Been moved by Counselor Spickmeyer, second by Counselor Forsman to approve Resolution 2026-04. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman. Aye. Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Maury,
Aye.
Counselor Spicklemeyer.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director Province. Next up, we have item C, Resolution 2026-10, considering approving the Administrative Services Agreement for the governmental 401A plan of the City of Lewiston, Idaho from Nationwide Retirement Solutions, Inc., and authorizing the Mayor and Human Resources Director to sign the agreement and plan documents. Again, this is an action item. We have our Director, Nikki Province, with us here. Welcome, Nikki.
Nikki Province, HR Director of the City of Lewiston. We have always had a 401A plan for, I don't know, decade now, maybe over. And that is for our fire reservists because they're not eligible for the 401K plan. Nationwide, it was with Nationwide, they reached out to me. And by creating a new plan under Nationwide, similar to our 457, we were able to get better rates and different investment opportunities for that plan. And so that then generated a new service agreement. And so I'd be asking for you to approve the mayor to sign that service agreement and for me to sign any additional documentation to make that happen.
Thank you, Director. Council, questions? None? Motions? Counselor Forsman?
Motion to approve Resolution 2026-10.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Forsman, second by Counselor Klein to approve Resolution 2026-10. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman. Aye. Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Maury,
Aye.
Counselor Spicklemeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director Province. Council, next up, we have item D, assigned building fund request, considering approving a request to use $104,430 from the assigned building fund to complete projects at Bird Lips Pool. This is an action item. We have our Parks and Recreation Director with us here, Justin Glenn. Director, welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hi, Justin Glenn. I'm your Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Lewiston. Good evening. So I'm here to follow up on where we are with community pools and request support for $430,000 from the assigned building fund to complete the projects at Bird Lips Pool. What I wanted to start off with was basically providing a status update on where the work we've done so far and where we're going. We had the opportunity to meet with the pool liner installing contractor last week. That was a great opportunity for us to walk the footprints and do some pre-construction type diagnosis and get a plan together and start determining some timelines. I'll be happy to follow up with that more going forward. But what we've done so far, if you've been out to Bird Lips recently, you'll see some changes. So we really addressed a lot of the prep work already. We removed a lot of the overgrown vegetation from 3 years of nobody being up there. We went through the pool house and cleaned it out, identified items that we thought might be worthwhile holding on to, and then also identified items that might need to be surplus. The roof work, there's a new membrane roof on that facility, on the pool house itself, which was intentional to try to preserve some of the interior. I'll have some photos to show you here in a couple slides of what that currently looks like. And then we identified that there needs to be some drain repairs, and we believe we can do that work internal within our facilities branch. And then we took a walk up to Orchard's Pool, and I think this is a bigger change here than my initial presentation. We've already got some new lifeguard chairs. I identified the existing ones as being a hazard. We actually had a slip and fall from a lifeguard into the pool last year, so we're addressing some of those safety concerns there. We began the prep work on the main drain flange area. We identified some leakage outside of the main vessel there, and we're doing that work in-house to our facilities team currently. But I was going through the budget, and I was looking like, okay, so what's the bang for the buck? So we can eat the $26,550 in-house in our assigned facility maintenance budget and out of the pool budget already as it exists. So I'm requesting to take the assigned building fund dollars and putting that lump sum all into Bird Lips. And I'll give you an example of why. This slide was just presenting some history of the project work we've done, but I wanted to highlight, and I most of you guys were here on 3 November, but I had presented and I gained approval to move forward under the estimated total of $398,900. And that's important. That's a number that's important to me because I want to hold true to that ask. I asked you for consideration. That would be what it would take to get Burt Lips open, and I want to hold fast to that. And then I circled back and we got approval for the pool liner itself, which was $294,469. Here's what Burt Lips currently looks like, and I think this is important if you haven't been out there. The first main interest is the beautiful welcoming entrance of the pool house saying, hey, come play here. This is a fun place to go. I really want to update these graphics and make it an asset. The main customer service area will be addressed through the remainder of this work. You see a lot of stains on the floors. We tried to clean that up in-house. We just don't have the right machinery to be able to do that. So that's why part of this ask will be relooking and addressing the flooring throughout the pool deck and inside the pool house. You can see the outdated kind of paint throughout. You're looking at the different hallways. They spear off. If you haven't been in there recently, if you go to the right, that's the women's shower space. I got a picture there of what that currently looks like. The center picture is where our lifeguards are. We've got some safety concerns there we'd like to address. And then the pool deck itself, which will be the heaviest lift of the remaining ask. The condition of that pool deck is it's potted, it's cracked. It's just wear and tear from not being taken care of, cleaned, or maintained. And so that's really why I want to try to focus our efforts, the majority of our efforts with this ask for the remaining balance. Here's our estimated cost breakdown. Again, I'm here to ask for $104,430 from the assigned building fund. This is what this will look like. And then again, denoting that the general fund facility maintenance expenses in our current existing budget for Orchards Pool can accommodate the remaining 26,515 projects. So finally, I'm here to ask for approval to move forward with that amount for Burt Lips repair. I wanted to highlight a couple of things here. Walking through, we have an aggressive timeline to get Burt Lips open, but we feel very comfortable we'll be able to get that pool open with these funds in the middle of the summer of 2026. We have a lot of other opportunities, I think, with the pool that we need to get it fixed first before we can do some of the other stuff. And so this is really the step in that direction. So pending questions or concerns at this time.
Thank you, Director. Council Spickelmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Director, looking at your list here, you talk about clearing out all the abandoned furniture fixtures in Burt Lips Pool, but I don't see anything in your cost about replacing them.
Correct. Yep. So we have some budget money that we've set aside and we still have operationally in our pools budget and also in our recreation budget that I'd like to apply to that.
Follow-up.
Counselor.
I was also curious, in the FY26 budget, do we have line items in there to support the staff requirements for Burt Lips?
We're going to use the existing staff requirements. I think what I have challenged the team is to look at strategic staffing. We don't need to do 12-hour days all at one pool. That can be separated to accommodate both once we're open. And then going into the next season, we'll have a better picture of what our actual requirements will be.
Council President Kleber.
So I don't know if you have the answer to this or not. It might be for Amy, but what's the balance in the assigned building fund currently?
Sir, it's 4.9 million estimated.
So we've whittled that down substantially.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to make a comment on that. I was at
That's fine.
I was at the work session meeting when you made the comment about that fund specifically and the understanding of what it's used for. And so my intention, and I see Chief Lucas is in the room here, we're working collaboratively with the fire department, hand in hand, to address some risk mitigation concerns. And I'd be happy to circle back and come present that information. But that would be the next ask that I would have assigned building fund resources wise. And I think that is maybe a change in a previous list that's been presented to council of priorities. But I believe that we're taking a very prudent and strategic approach to what we asked for in that fund.
Thank you.
Counselor Forsman?
And I'm trying to recall, but we make interest currently off of those funds in that account. How much on average are we bringing in from interest by having that in that account?
That one I don't know.
For you, for
I
Liz.
actually need to correct that head nod. We don't make interest on that account. It's isolated. There's no longer a funding mechanism for that account. So that's something council could always consider during budget season, is to reestablish funding for that account. So it's an ongoing fund and not a fund that's depleting.
So we could put it, just, sorry, follow up, Mayor.
Director Chu, would you introduce yourself for the record when you respond? Counselor Forsman?
Amy Gordon, city treasurer.
So we could put that in a, maybe like a high yield savings account, something that's at least building some kind of money back. Is that correct?
It's part of our shared revenue account, but the interest earnings on it go into the general fund.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Council President Kleber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, when, I guess it was a couple of years ago when I was down in Boise, trying to get back to life, we had over $7 million in that assigned building fund. Isn't that correct? Okay. Okay. So we've been burning it up. I don't have a problem with this. I'm all about water safety, teaching kids how to swim. Don't get me wrong, I hear the stories from the old guys. No, we went down to the river and learned how to swim. Well, a bunch of your buddies died when you were little kids too. So I'm all about the pools, but I'm concerned about the fact that that fund is starting to slip away. And we still have needs. I mean, Chief's not here tonight, right, Mayor? But sooner or later, we're gonna get smacked in the head with the fact that we're gonna need a new fire station. So money's gonna have to come from somewhere. But I'm in favor of this.
Councilors, if you have no more questions, I would entertain a motion. Counselor Forsman?
I'll get a quick comment. I want to say I appreciate that with him mentioning the our assigned building fund and the concerns of the fire department. They're already talking to the person that it affects, the department that it affects. I think that was, went above and beyond on that. I really appreciate that. That was really strategic thinking.
Counselor Spickelmeyer?
Yeah, motion to authorize the use of $104,430 for the assigned building fund to complete the maintenance projects at Burt Lips Pool.
Second.
Who's the second on that?
You can go, Counselor Wright's fine.
Counselor Wright, okay. It's been moved by Counselor Spickelmeyer, seconded by Counselor Wright to authorize the use of $104,430 from the assigned building fund to complete maintenance projects at Burt Lips Pool. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Maury,
Aye.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Carries. Thank you, Director, for being here tonight. Thank you, Clerk Rocky, and thank you, Council. Next, we move to item Roman numeral 6E, bid award for IP-26-009, considering awarding the IP-26-009 transfer station access in Wildup cul-de-sac, TS 004/005, closed brand project to ML Albright Sons, Inc., in the amount of $231,526.40, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. This is an action item. We have our Public Works Director with us here tonight, Justin Johnson. Welcome, Director.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. This is a pretty straightforward project, the construction of they're actually two separate projects, but they're within spitting distance of each other. The only interesting thing about this one is, well, two, I want to call out. One, that it was 100,000 below engineer's estimate, so a good price. But what was interesting is that Wild Dove Way cul-de-sac, so Wild Dove Way was constructed in partnership with the port when we put the transfer station out there. That cul-de-sac comes down, it's actually right on the other side of the river from where we're sitting now. It wasn't constructed, and it was purposely not constructed because we were trying to get the utilities figured out. There was a bunch of open lots where Northwest Forest Light has since come up there and constructed. And so that cul-de-sac needs to be constructed. It would ideally should have been done before Northwest Forest Light came in, but it was not. And so that's where city's trying to come in there and correct that, mitigate that issue. So that was a project without a budget or without a funding source. And so the hope was that we could partner, find a grant, and it didn't. So what with that, it wasn't included in this year's budget. So I budgeted roughly $150,000 for the access road, hoping that we could partner with the other component. We were not able to, and so that cul-de-sac needs to be constructed. With a good bid that came in for the access road and the cul-de-sac, we were below engineer's estimate, but we were still above what was budgeted in there with 150,000. So by approving tonight this award, we'll have to come back and amend the budget, the 2026 budget, by $81,528.40 to make up that difference. It's all coming out of sanitation because sanitation was the original enterprise fund that built all that cul-de-sac and all that access road out there. So a little bit of confusion, a little bit of history on that, but there's plenty of room within the reserves within the sanitation fund, because you're going to see, we'll talk about the sanitation fund here in a little bit later. So I'm here for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Director of Council. Councilor Spickmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor. So Director, just clarification. So you said this is from the guardhouse or whatever you want to call it, all the way up to?
Yeah, so as you pull in from Wild Dove Way down to, basically the scale house there. And if you've been out there recently, you can see that road looks pretty bad. We were hoping we could save it, but it's a reconstruct. It just gets so much heavy traffic coming in now with the Packer trucks coming in.
Councilor Spickmeyer.
Motion to award AFB-26-009 transfer station access and Wild Dove cul-de-sac project to A.L. Albright and Sons, Inc. in the amount of $231,526.40 and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Spickmeyer, second by Council President Kleberg to award IFB-26-009 transfer station access on Wild Dove cul-de-sac project to M.L. Albright & Sons, Inc. in the amount of $231,526.40 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Clerk Rocky.
Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
Counselor Forsman.
Aye.
Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Maury.
Aye.
Counselor Spickmeyer.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director. Council, next up, we have item F, Resolution 2026-09, considering accepting and approving an amended easement for pipeline right-of-way located in the Lower Granite Lock and Dam, Nez Perce County, Idaho, from the U.S. Corps of Engineers as grantor to the City of Lewiston as grantee associated with the Snake River Avenue Sewer Line Replacement Project. This is an action item, and again, we welcome our Public Works Director, Dustin Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So you may recognize this. This was an easement that you previously approved. What we're doing tonight is just amending the conditions. So we're actually doing the work in the easement right now, but our attorney, Jennifer Tangano, has been working with the Corps' attorneys, and in your packet outlined just the provisions that were amended with this. So if you have questions, I would kind of defer to the attorney on the specifics of what was amended in that.
Councilors? Councilor Wright?
Yeah, thank you. If I recall correctly here, this wasn't there a challenge around how we could pay fees year by year with the way that funding works, our funding works?
Jennifer Tangano, City Attorney. That's a good question, Counselor Wright. So when we initially negotiated this contract,
We negotiated the full administrative expense for the 50-year period because of an Idaho constitutional provision that doesn't allow us to incur expenses beyond our fiscal year. And when we approved the resolution that authorized that full payment, the Corps didn't realize they don't have the systems capable of tracking that payment for the full 50-year term because it's intended to pay for their administrative expenses every 5 years. And so we amended the agreement to shorten the term but allow for additional extensions. So it's still a 50-year overall agreement, but then they reduced the administrative costs to just the 20-year period.
Okay, so I assume that takes care of the challenge that we had.
It's not necessarily a challenge, it's just there's a disagreement about that particular fee and what we can pay versus like what the state of Idaho is capable of paying. And we worked out a different solution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Spickelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess for the public, and a question too, is that one of the things, the fees for this will go towards new equipment and stuff at the Southway boat ramp.
Yeah, the way that negotiating with the Corps, I mean, well, let me just give the expert on the matter here.
Jennifer Tangano, City Attorney, Councilor Spickelmeyer, that's also another good question. We don't know exactly where this equipment is going. It is intended to go to the local Corps office, and where they ultimately put it, we don't know, but they wanted an in-kind payment, which is authorized under United States Code in lieu of a financial payment, and that's essentially the purchase of the easement itself. That is a common practice. It's typically expected when someone gets an easement, you have to pay the property owner for that easement. In this particular instance, instead of requiring a cash payment, they wanted an in-kind payment of actual items so that it benefits the local office instead of going into the Corps' general fund at the federal level. So it'll have a direct impact here in the Lewis-Clark Valley instead of going to the federal government and then funneling its way down through various accounts and everything.
Also, you have resolution 2026-09 before you.
Right.
Councilor Wright?
Motion to approve resolution 2026-09.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Wright, second by Councilor Forsman to approve resolution 2026-09. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Maury, Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye. Carries. Thank you, Council. Next up, item G, task order number 2026-1, Stantec Consulting Services, Inc., considering approving task order number 2026-1 with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for the WR086WTB alkalinity addition in the amount of $221,476 and authorizing the mayor to sign the task order. This is an action item. Director Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. So in front of you, previously we received an emerging contaminants grant for $1.8 million to take well 4 offline and then allow us to modify our new water treatment plant to address the alkalinity, because that's surface water coming out of the water, out of the Clearwater River. So alkalinity is trying to balance that out with the rest of the system. So it's a $1.8 million grant for the construction of those improvements. This is the design of it, so we'll design it first. And so that's with Stantec, who was the original designer of the water treatment plant, for $221,000. I stand for questions.
Council? Council President Kleberg.
Make a motion to approve task order number 2026-1 in the amount of $221,476 with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for the WR086 WTP alkalinity addition and authorizing the mayor to sign task order.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Wright to approve task order number 2026-1 in the amount of $221,476, which stand to Consulting Services Incorporated for the WR086 WTP alkalinity addition and authorizing the mayor to sign the task order. Clerk Brockey.
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman. Aye. Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Maury,
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director. Next up, we have item H, Resolution 2026-05, considering adopting the City of Lewiston 2026 Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. This is an action item, and once again, the Public Works Director, Justin Johnson. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So we saw this previously at a public hearing. This is our annual transportation capital improvement plan. So those who may be watching are familiar with the process. Every year we throw out all of our, basically our transportation network. We ask for feedback from the public and council. We hold a public hearing and we rank these accordingly. And each year, well, we have roughly 150 plus projects that are identified in this capital improvement plan. And so we're trying to prioritize number 1 to 150 plus. The reason we do this puts weight into when we apply for grants. In case, this case, Main and D is the current number 1. And we have turned in a federal build grant for that. And so they, when they review these, they look at how you prioritize your projects and where it weights into the community, and seeing where Main Street lies as number 1 gives us a little bit more latitude, or a little bit more, oomph that we prioritize that as a prime project. So I did get feedback from the council at the public hearing, and I guess what I tried to do is to take the feedback at the public hearing and organize the projects that are in front of you. And so in your packet, and what I have pulled up here is the original spreadsheet. So you have the 2026 ranking. Getting older. 2026 rank based off of the criteria that was originally weighted by the capital improvement plan when we put together the transportation plan or transportation master plan and 5 years ago. Then the other column is the 2025 plan that carried forward. Basically, I got the gist from the council. The preference is to carry forward the 2025 plan and then re-rank those projects. And so I carry, what you have now is the 2026 update on that last blue tab with the projects that I got feedback on, being Grell from 61 to 21, the Thane Warner 10th intersection from 48 to 14. And then there were some projects that were brought in and introduced with the Thane corridor study. I tried not to overweight them, but they were not ranked because we didn't rank them in 2025. So I took the criteria and kind of slotted them in where they are. And you can kind of see, if you go through the spreadsheet, where they fall. Some of them are specifically called new projects or weighted very low. And I highlighted in that spreadsheet where those ones, particularly the Thane Warner 10th intersection fall and Grell fall. And so I thought that would be easier as a starting point than to try and rank the 2025 or the 2026 and move them around. So that is the starting point. If you're comfortable with it, we can take it and go with it. If you want to move a couple things around, I can do that, or we can go as deep as you want. The one thing, I've had a couple conversations with the council. Generally, moving forward, there's 2 things I want to do. One, I'm going to try and take out, there's a lot of there's 150 projects. And so how can you definitively tell me 137 is more important than 147? And so those are a lot of sidewalk projects, trails, bike lanes, things that are, I'm not saying they're not important, but I'm saying we should probably tackle Main Street before we talk about a shared use trail out on Warner. And so I'm going to try and consolidate these larger, basically take the arterials and collectors off. And so that gives you a much more manageable and an understandable list that you can work from. And then the second thing I want to do, I will commit, we will carry forward. Whatever we adopt tonight will be what you see next year. And so instead of seeing how the criteria ranks them, you'll see how you rank them this time next year. And so that gives you a better starting point. And then I can call out, are you sure 10th and Warner should be 47? Are you want to hire, because the criteria says it's an important project. So with that, that's the plan moving forward. But we can go wherever you want tonight.
Thank you, Director. And just to clarify, just because a project is ranked number 1, 2, or 3 doesn't guarantee that it has funding.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. Case in point, when we're going for grants, like the grant that we just approved for the water treatment plant, I can tell you that is not the highest and most important project that's in our need of water projects, but it's emerging contaminants. It's related to PFAS in that area. So that was funded. So we got basically $2 million, but I'd love to spend $2 million on a reservoir or some pipeline replacement. Same thing with transportation. When the grants are calling out sidewalks to schools, I can't spend that on Main Street. And so we go through, when we rank these, we go through and we say, okay, this is a sidewalk to school, and we start picking out where a project could be, eligible for that grant.
Council, questions? Councilor Forsman.
I'd more just make a comment when you're saying, obviously it's sometimes unfortunate when we get money for projects that kind of just knock them off the list when we, really have other bigger projects or fish to fry. But at least it does take it off the list. And then that's one less thing we have to do. And then more money to the big objectives. So more of those little things we get off the list, hopefully that gives us more money to allocate to those bigger projects.
Yep, as that hole fills in, the money slides in. And same thing with, I think the next thing on this agenda is transportation on Snake River Road. There was a grant that came in, and so our allocation for STP funds got filled with that grant. So now that STP fund can be spent on another project. So yeah, you see that a lot where, it's not the money that we wanted to spend on this project, but that frees up project money for other places.
Councilor Klein.
I'm good with moving forward with your updated 2026 version. Motion to approve resolution 2026-05.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Klein, second by Councilor Forsman to approve resolution 2026-05. Clerk Rocky.
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Maury.
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Hey,
Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director Johnson. One more, number I, letter I, local professional services agreement for project number A013-443, close paren. Considering approving the local professional services agreement with JUB Engineers for project number A013-443, close paren, Snake River Avenue, Southway Bridge, 11th Avenue, Lewiston, Nez Perce County, key number 13443 for the not to exceed amount of $580,775, and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement. This is an action item. Director Johnson.
Evening, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson. So this is the local services agreement for the construction administration for the Snake River Road project. So currently we're out there doing the sewer replacement. That should hopefully wrap up next week. And then when that is done, we'll start replacing the road from Southway roundabout into 11th Street, including turn lanes, and then the road up 11th there. I think it's important to state, this is, as I kind of hinted earlier, this is a combination of our allocation, which is STBG money, Surface Transportation Grant, that we get annually, but then we got a strategic initiatives grant to offset the demand for that. So it's a bunch of federal money that is going to pay for this project. It will be, the STP money will roll forward into 9th Street grade later. None of that matters other than this is all paid for by federal dollars. None of this is local dollars except for maybe a small portion of that STP match. And so that $580,000, it's a lot of money, but it is also a lot of work to manage a federal project, inspections, and all of the construction administration that goes with it. So with that, I am here for questions.
Thank you, Director. Council, questions? Councilor Spiegelmeier.
So Director, it's kind of interesting in here, it has a line item that the contract for a not to exceed amount. I don't think you've ever had a contract that didn't exceed it and needed amendment.
Which one are you talking about?
Look here, part of the contract says the contract's for a not to exceed amount. I mean, almost everyone we've had has had an amendment.
Not necessarily. We've had, I mean, I know what you're saying, yeah, because we've broken them down. For the engineering product contracts, we typically have the design and then construction administration on the back end. And so, yeah, you'll see where, and we're trying to do a better job recently where we'll show you, this is only design, you can expect a construction administration, but when they write, that's the scope of services and to not exceed. They're usually pretty conservative, but yeah, we could be back for an amendment, but that would, again.
Counselor Wright?
Motion to approve the local professional services agreement project for number A013, paren 443, close paren, Snake River Avenue, Southway Bridge to 11th Avenue between the City of Lewiston and JUB Engineers, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $580,775 and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Counselor Wright, second by Counselor Forsman to approve the local professional services agreement for project number A013, Brent 443, close Brent Snake River Avenue, Southway Bridge to 11th Avenue between the City of Lewiston and JUB Engineers, Inc. in the amount of, in amount not to exceed $580,775 and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement. Clerk Rocky.
Council President Krieger,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Klein,
Aye.
Councilor Maury,
Aye.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, Director Johnson. Council, next up, we have item J, ordinances. Number 1, second reading. Item A, ordinance number 4956, considering amending the franchise agreement for collection, hauling, and tipping of residential and commercial solid waste, yard waste, and recyclable materials with Sanitary Disposal, Inc., doing business as Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. Approved through Lewiston City Ordinance number 4823 on November 1, 2021, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign said amendment to the franchise agreement. Action item, Director Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson. This is the second reading. We've closed the public hearing, and so we have no additional presentation. I know there's been a lot of questions regarding, indexes and equipment costs. I am here for questions, and we have representatives from Sunshine Disposal to answer any questions and legal. So I guess I'm kind of opening it up to the mayor or the attorney's pleasure here.
Jennifer, are you prepared to offer any comments now? Not at this time?
Mayor, no, I don't have any comments. I did just provide Councilor Wright some motion language, and that was it.
Thank you. So, councilors, this is not a public hearing tonight, but we do have representatives from Sunshine Disposal and Recycling here tonight. If you have questions about the amendment for our Public Works Director, Dustin Johnson. So with that, I'm just going to throw it right open to you for any questions. Councilor Spickelmeyer.
I don't really have any questions. I just have a comment, I guess, to the council. In looking through this, to me, the original request on here was the request for the 18.5% for one-time addition, CPI calculation as an event of force majeure, I guess that's how you pronounce it, specifically related to the increased operating costs result from the pandemic. But if you look at the Consumer's Price Index or the Producer's Index, both of those were adjusted due to the pandemic. So they were already in their calculations. So to me, I don't see the justification for the 18.5%. The difference, the 18.5% is the difference between the CPI and the PPI. And the CPI is what was agreed to within their contract when they first signed it. Maybe we should have had PPI in there, but that's not what was in the contract.
Thank you, Counselor. Further comments? Counselor Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question first. So I see and my pages could be a little different here, but page 228 in the packet, and I believe this is part of the email that we received. It's got the charts in it, this figure 3 chart with the regional rate increases for Lewiston, Nez Perce County, Latah County. So just kind of let folks know where I'm looking at. There's a sentence, the opening sentence in here is our initial request to staff when we began discussing it nearly a year ago and memorialized in a letter to staff dated April 3rd, 2025, was an adjustment this year of the regular CPI calculation of 4.6% plus a one-time addition of 18.5% to accommodate the force majeure impact. And reading through, everything that's been presented to us, my understanding is this is the 18.5% is being asked for. The increase that we gave in 2026 was 0.7%. Is there anything happening with this 4.6, or can I completely disregard that number?
Yes, that 4.6, when we talked about negotiation, that was the one that we worked through the numbers, much like you're working through the numbers, and staff just felt that we wouldn't support that but yeah, that one was not as part of the final request. So it's just the 18.5 and then the contractual changes that we both agreed to that was in the contract.
Gotcha.
Counselor Wright?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I was going through the numbers, and I'd be more than happy to hear a comment from your team at Sunshine Disposal. So when I was looking through the numbers at trying to use the similar calculation that you had asked for if this contract is amended, which is that 12-month average, and I might not be exactly on the same spot you guys are with your numbers, but I use that PCU ending in the 112. And when I compare that to what the actual increases were, looking back to 2022 forward, I see that the difference, if we would have used that calculation, given I could have some wiggle room here, but I see that's 11.53% lost by you guys if we were using this other index. So, and I have some understanding that the 18.5%, that number that you came up with didn't have to do with trying to recover losses from these previous years, but I'd like to better understand that if I could, of where the 18.5 is coming from, what the thoughts are there.
Good evening, members of council. I'm John Lloyd with Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. A couple of things. You're talking about the difference between what the PPI would have provided and that. So I haven't seen the calculation that resulted in 11.5%. We've looked at it a couple of different ways. So I think if you go back another year than that, which is when the last franchise agreement was being renegotiated, we were somewhere in the 13 to 14% range. The original 18.5% request started off based on what we saw as our operational costs that were incurred by our company on top of what was recovered from the CPI. And we provided some examples in the packet that showed truck cost increase, medical cost increase, labor cost increase, things that showed percentage increases upwards of 40%, whereas the index provided us with, more like 13%. So That's kind of where the 18.5% originally came from. And, you know, and we view the force majeure language as justifying that because the impacts of the pandemic increased our operating costs as a solid waste collector far above and beyond what the change CPI index was providing us.
Okay. I think I'm good for the moment. If anybody else has questions, thank you.
Any other questions, counselors? Okay,
Mayor.
Counselor Forsman?
So I think for me, I'm still just lies within the concern of seeing kind of the proof behind the pudding for the numbers. And so, which we have had some conversations about what ways you guys can do that. I don't know if we're getting close to that, but I can't make an agreement on that until I see that. So, or have a way to see that. I don't know if you have anything to add, but
Brian?
we're mad.
Brian, welcome. Introduce yourself for the record. This thing's running, so I need you to speak up just a little bit.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Brian Coddington, Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. We have made some attempts to figure out how to provide the information that you're requesting, which is review of the actual cost increases. We have not yet been able to come to a reasonable option. Both the city and Sunshine have offered ideas, and so far we haven't been able to figure out the right idea to be able to make that happen. We do have the invoices with us. We are prepared to share those. We just have concerns about sharing those in open session.
Mayor.
Counselor
Follow-up.
Forsman?
So I know, I think we mentioned that there's a possibility of sharing either to the mayor or the staff. Has that already been done?
That has not been able to be accomplished just yet. We'd be open to doing that if that's the direction that the council seeks. We just would not be able to leave those or provide those for the record, but they're certainly able to be viewed and to be able to check our math and know where our numbers are coming from.
Under the mayor's direction, he reached out to our fleet team, and so we got some prices for our Vector trucks. We don't buy the exact same trucks, but they're pretty similar. The Vector truck, so case in point, FY15 was $362,000. In 2023, it was $547,000. In FY25, it had gone up to $622,000. So that's the same truck, new, across from 15, 23 to 25.
Excuse me. Thank you, Director. And counselors, we did receive from Sunshine Disposal dated February 13th, 2026. It was provided in a previous council packet. And even though we don't have invoices on here, I'll just direct you to figure 2 on page 2 to support what Director Johnson just shared with you. Operating cost percentage increase. They did break it down for whatever it's worth by vehicles and tires and dumpsters and then benefits and driver costs and things like that. And the residential truck costs are up 40%. I presume that's for a new vehicle.
That's
or
correct.
at least in the near future, what you would expect to pay for those going forward to replace your fleet and keep it running.
That's correct. New vehicles, sorry, Brian Coddington, Sunshine Disposal and Recycling. New vehicles, so chassis and body.
I think what Director Johnson shared with, and I did ask for the information because I wanted to find some way to understand it. And so I looked at what we're paying for our vehicles, and we can't deny that we're paying a lot more for our vehicles. And we're either going to run old equipment or we're going to have to replace those fleets and continue to provide services. So I can understand the request that Sunshine's making when it comes to looking forward and trying to continue to provide these services. If the costs are going to go up, and whether it's Sunshine or another vendor, we're going to pay now or we're going to pay later. It's the way the business runs. I don't think there's anything hidden here. Councilor Klein?
I was wondering, with your operational cost increases, are you, because you also have part of your business is in Spokane, correct?
Correct.
So there's a difference between, you know, buying and purchasing things in Idaho compared to Washington and the higher operating cost to have a business in Washington state. Are those prices reflected? I'm worried about us having to eat the cost of you doing business in Washington.
Yeah, good question. These are costs specifically related to the cost of servicing Lewiston. The items that we've outlined here, the truck, carts, the curbside carts, the dumpsters, tires, those are purchased based upon, for the most part, a national vendor system. And so those costs are relatively similar no matter where you're at in our region. Sales tax being the obvious difference.
Counselor Maury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for you, sir. You have 3 different trucks that you run, yard waste, recycling, and residential garbage, correct?
Correct.
On routes?
Correct.
Okay. The yard waste goes out here to East Lewiston, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Household waste goes to the transfer station.
Correct.
Where does the recycling go?
It goes to Pacific Steel and Recycling.
All of it does, and then they segregate it and separate it and send it on its way from there?
It does, yeah.
Follow up.
Counselor.
How many route miles a week do your trucks run? Because whenever I see trucks in the alleyways downtown in Normal Hill, you've got garbage cans on both sides of the same alley. Truck goes down, does a U-turn, does damage to the streets as they're doing their maneuvering, and comes back down the same alley. Would it be feasible to ask residents as a cost-saving measure to everyone put their garbage containers and everything on the same side of the street so that you get one pass down the alley?
Answer your first question, I don't know the number of miles, so we get that for you if that's of interest. But your second question, it's something we have to study. I know we do what's called route optimization to make sure that we are collecting the most efficient manner possible. Some of these are operational decisions. I think that others could be policy decisions of the council as well. So that's something we'd have to sort through with staff to make sure that we're addressing that appropriately.
Thank you.
Director Johnson, do you have an estimate of the miles driven? I know that at one time we had a franchise fee based on the miles driven and we estimated it.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
It's over 100,000, but I don't know what the exact number is. It's quite a bit, yeah. Counselor Wright?
Yeah, maybe just a more comment to the council. I was going to read a motion waiving the third reading, but I don't know the council is wanting, if anybody's wanting more information, so they don't want me to do that. I mean, I guess I could lose a vote for it, but wanted to bring that up, maybe get a sense of another reading or not.
Counselor Spickelmeyer?
Well, I guess to answer your question, was intending to make an amendment to it, so probably take a couple readings to go through
Sorry.
Counselor Forsman?
One more question. Can we just to one more time make sure that we're all understanding the 18.5% increase and what the exact purpose? Because I know there's been confusion of whether that was to recover previous cost to get up to now standards, or to have the city put up from cost so that we could slowly increment the citizens' rate pay.
Yes, so thank you for that question. Kind of two parts to the answer there. First is the 18.5% is looking forward. We're not asking for any compensation in arrears. We are looking for an adjustment to the base rate to be able to invest in capital and operating expenses moving forward to continue the level of service that is offered to the citizens of Lewiston. I think the confusion comes in when we're talking about the budget item that Director Johnson has talked about in terms of how to pay that cost and how to socialize that rate into future the rate adjustments. I think he's proposed, and correct me if I'm misstating here, he's proposed using $500,000 to what we would refer to as buy down the rate. So essentially, instead of an 18.5% rate increase hitting all at one time, it would lower that 18.5% rate increase for this year, and then it would be stepped in to subsequent rate increases. And it would be discussion between staff and council as to how to time those the future rate increases and whether or not to utilize the same strategy moving forward. Did I catch that correctly?
A couple points of clarification. Yes. So we have, that's the intent of building these reserves is to build capital and then absorb these types of hits. And so an 18.5% or whatever percent you land on tonight isn't necessarily required to be moved forward. It doesn't mean the ratepayers are going to see that 18.5%. We've purposely built the reserves up to a certain extent to cover, we just did a transfer station floor, and now we're doing the road, and then we have this contract we're discussing, and we're also doing, or we'll be negotiating our tipping fee contract at the Soton County landfill. The draft number, I think, is $12 a ton more than what we're paying now, roughly. And so we knew, you look back, you knew these costs were coming, and so projecting forward, I don't have, because we haven't landed on a percentage tonight, but by the time we get to rate adoptions, currently I feel comfortable that we're not looking at double-digit rate increases, and so that's where we're at. One other point of clarification, we talked about the CPI, the PPI, and there's a multiplier in front of it. The current contract is 80%, I think, for CPI. And so as CPI gets great every year, you're missing, I keep calling it the delta. So there's the true cost and then their rate, which was a percentage of that CPI. So every year, and especially as your CPI are in the sixes, which is not very common. And so you're getting that bigger delta. And so that's what this is recorrecting that delta that was missed and then getting rid of that percentage on that CPI. So all future indexes are all based off that level playing field. So when we see future increases in fuel or tires or equipment, it's built into that index and it's not a percentage of that. So that's where that conversation, that's what tonight's conversation is about.
Jennifer Tangano, City Attorney. I also want to make an ask of the council. I know Councilor Forsman indicated an interest in receiving additional information. The public hearing's been had on this, and that public hearing was also continued to another meeting. So I asked the council to make a decision based on the information that's been presented before you and the ordinance that is available as is, and not necessarily continue to focus on whether or not Sunshine can provide more information. The information has been provided. There's been multiple opportunities to provide information and to have those discussions. Regardless of whether or not you are satisfied with that information, I think that should go into whether or not you approve the ordinance as written or you approve it as amended. But I do ask the council to focus on what has been provided and what is currently before you instead of seeking to continue to delay the process and to seek additional information, and taking into consideration that if you're not satisfied with that information, that should be reflected in the decision that you cast.
Council, any questions for Jennifer? I think that's very important. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer, for the clarification. Motion would be in order, Councilor.
Motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 4956 by the title only.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Klein, second by Councilor Wright, to approve the second reading of ordinance number 4956 by title only. Is there further discussion? Councilor Wright?
Yeah, and I brought it up earlier. I did take quite a bit of time looking through the numbers, specifically the index that was given to us, which is the one ending in 112, and comparing that with the current formula of how we do these increases. And my number's right around 11.53% that I've come to.
Mayor?
Counselor Forsman?
Well, sticking around with the information that I have, asked several times to get some kind of data behind that, some kind of numbers, some kind of paperwork. And then this got approved, and now I'm finding that we can't have that, so I cannot approve this because I did not get the information that I needed, even though it was asked.
Thank you, Council. Amendments? Councilor Speckelmeyer?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to revise the amendment to the franchise agreement and remove sections 9 and 10 and remove the proposed exhibits A and B and renumber the rest of the amendment accordingly. Basically, that removes the 18.5% one-time payment.
Councilor, you're going to have to either write that down for me or say it slower, because I did not capture it all.
Ready?
Okay.
Motion to revise the amendment to the franchise agreement and remove sections 9 and 10 and the removal of the proposed exhibits A and B and to renumber the rest of the amendment accordingly.
Okay.
Second?
Been moved by Councilor Spickelmeyer, second by Councilor Forsman, to remove sections 9 and 10
Yep, yes.
and remove Exhibit A and B
Exhibits A and B,
and renumber.
the rest of the amendment accordingly.
Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilor Spickelmeyer?
I just feel, as I mentioned earlier, that I think that the whole thing around this is just the original contract. Should have really been using a PPI instead of the cost per consumer price index. Both of them already have that, the pandemic economic impact adjustments. So I don't think that's valid, the event of force majeure.
Councilor?
Mayor?
Councilor Forsman?
Are we allowed to ask questions at this point?
No, we have to speak to the amendment, the motion.
I guess now that we go through with this, I don't know what, it sounds like there might still be an increase to the overall ratepayers, but maybe I'm not capturing that correctly. Councilor Spiegelmeier wants to, or what your impression of that is.
I'm going to call for the vote on this one. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Any other amendments? Hearing none, we'll go back to the main motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 4956 by title only as amended. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Clerk Brockie?
Approving the second reading of ordinance 4956, an ordinance of the city of Lewiston amending the franchise agreement for collection, hauling, and tipping of residential and commercial solid waste, yard waste, and recyclable materials between the city of Lewiston and Sanitary Disposal, Inc., doing business as Sunshine Disposal and Recycling, an Idaho corporation granted pursuant to the Lewiston City Code Ordinance Number 4823 on November 1, 2021, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest said amendment to the franchise agreement respectively, providing that the provisions of this ordinance are deemed severable and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Councilors, next we move to Roman numeral 8, unfinished and new business. Item 8, city councilor comments. Comments shall not be related to an item currently before the city council or an item that may come before the city council in the foreseeable future and shall be limited to comments, not discussion.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman.
I just want to highlight the next episode of Living Lewiston podcast will feature a conversation with attorney Jennifer Tangano about Chapter 2 of Lewiston City Code, which goes over the mayor's powers and duties, the responsibilities of the city council, appointed officials such as the city attorney, the treasurer, and the city clerk, compensation for elected officials, how council meetings are conducted, advisory boards and commissions, and more. And they also asked if you have any questions about the topic, they'd like to include them in the episode, so engage if you so will. And they will also take a closer look at the office of the city attorney and what the role means for the community.
Thank you, Councilor. Further city councilor comments? Okay, Council will move to item B, city boards and commissions, liaison updates.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman.
I have a URA meeting tomorrow from 12 to 1:30, and I don't know, I've not been there yet, so I'm trying to figure where the room is. It'll be my first one, so excited to get to know that board, and also the disability advisory meeting. Oh, excuse me, that's my first one. I have been to the URA, 12 to 2, so I will get back to it at the next regular meeting.
Thank you, Councilor. Further council comments? Councilor Speckelmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor. I had an update for the Valley Vision Board meeting. Went through a couple of the new contacts they have. They look really promising. Jerry has a couple of interviews scheduled. Some people coming to town to look over Lewiston, so looks promising in the future.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to surprise Bruno here and ask Bruno if you could just introduce yourself and tell the council what we have hanging on the wall here. You have some new pictures here. Please.
Hello, Bruno Albino, Administrative Assistant Building Coordinator for the Lewiston Library. So over here to you guys' left or right, we have photographs from photographer Bill Voxman. So we have them around the library. I believe they'll be here for a few months. So please take a look and enjoy. He should have a program. I don't have the date right now, but he does have a program, kind of like an artist meet and greet type deal coming up too. So.
Thank you. And do you have some student work coming soon too? Or did that pass already?
We do. We have, we just hung up new hangers in the teen zone for local teens. I don't believe well, actually, there might be some in there. Yeah, I'd have to double check. But yeah, we do have some of that coming up too for local kids get a chance to have their artwork hanging at the library too.
Thank you. Well, you do a good job. Thank you. Councilors, mayor comments. I'm going to pass on that next. Agenda topics, councilors. Okay. Roman numeral 9.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Wright, second by Councilor Forsman to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, council.